All right, let's get right into it. We are talking about one of the biggest document drops in recent history, the Epstein files. We're going to break down what was actually released, what was missing, and, well, why this whole story is really just getting started. So picture this, December 19th, 2025. Thousands and thousands of pages tied to the Jeffrey Epstein case finally see the light of day. For years, people have been demanding answers to one simple question, right? Who knew what, and when did they know it? This release, this was supposed to be the moment we got those answers. But here's the thing. Was it really the bombshell everyone was waiting for? Because what people thought they were about to get and what actually landed, well, they're two totally different things. And that gap, that's where this story gets really interesting. Okay, so first, let's cover the basics. This wasn't some voluntary move. Not at all. This was a forced release, mandated by something called the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Basically, Congress passed a law that put a clock on it and said, time's up, release the files. So what did we actually get in this drop? Look, it wasn't some neat and tidy list. Not even close. It was this huge, jumbled mix of stuff. You've got internal investigation notes, old call logs, contact lists, photos taken at his properties, and a ton of material from earlier civil lawsuits. It's less like a spreadsheet and more like a giant, messy puzzle with half the pieces missing. And here's a term you've got to know. First tranche. That's what officials called this release. Tranche. It just means this is the first batch, the first installment. The full archive, the whole story? Nope, that's still locked away. What we're looking at right now is literally just chapter 1. And that brings us right to the heart of the confusion and the public outcry. You know how the internet works? The hype built up this massive wave of expectation, but that wave just crashed right into a much, much more complicated reality. So let's just lay it out. Side by side, the expectation was this smoking gun, a clear client list that would lead to a wave of arrests. The reality? A jumble of raw documents, zero new charges, and honestly, probably more questions now than we had before. Now, if you take away one single thing from this, let it be this. Documents are not convictions. I'm going to say it again. Documents are not convictions. The files might show an association. Someone's name is on a flight log or in an old phone book. But that, by itself, does not prove they did anything wrong. And that distinction, that is absolutely everything. So, if it's not the list everyone was hoping for, then what exactly do these files show us? Whose names are in there? And this is the important part. Why are they in there? Well, you see names of some pretty big players. Politicians, CEOs, celebrities, popping up in a few different ways. They might be on the flight logs from his private jets. They might be in his little block book of contacts. Sometimes they're in the background of a photo taken at one of his homes, or they just get mentioned in testimony from some of those older civil cases. And just to be 100% clear, this isn't just my opinion. The Department of Justice itself has said that just because a name appears in these files, it does not imply any criminal wrongdoing. It just establishes a link and association. That's it. Okay, now let's get to maybe the most frustrating part of this whole thing, what we can't see. All that black ink, the reductions, they practically became a bigger story than what was actually revealed. So the official reason for all those blacked out sections is pretty straightforward. The authorities say, look, we have to do this to protect victims' identities, we have to prevent them from being re-traumatized, we have to follow privacy laws, and we can't do anything that might mess up any other related cases. Makes sense, right? Well, that explanation did not sit well with a lot of people. Critics fired back almost immediately. They argued that the redactions went way, way beyond just protecting victims, and that maybe they were being used to hide information that the public really needs to see. So, I get it. With all the hype that fell flat and all the frustrating redactions, you might be wondering, so what? Why does this even matter? It matters because this release isn't a standalone event. It's just one piece of a much longer, much darker puzzle. Look at this timeline. We go all the way back to 2008 and that sweetheart deal he got. Then, fast forward to 2019, his arrest and his death in jail. The road to any kind of real accountability has been an absolute disaster. This 2025 document release isn't the finish line. It's just the latest step on a very, very long road. Because at the end of the day, this whole thing forces us to ask some really tough questions, doesn't it? It's about how money and power seem to warp our justice system. It's about whether our institutions are built to protect the powerless or the powerful. And this release just poured gasoline on that fire. One of the survivor advocates said something that just hit the nail on the head. She called it control transparency. It's that feeling that, yeah, they're giving us information, but they're still controlling the narrative. It looks like openness, but it doesn't feel like real accountability. So here we are. We're left with a bunch of fragments instead of the whole truth, and a promise that more files are on the way. The biggest question now is when that next tranche of documents drops, are we going to get any closer to real answers? Or is it just going to stir up even more controversy and distrust? We'll have to wait and see.